let's get this thing back on the track.
It's actually the first time in 10 years this thing's seen daylight. All right, first project car here, but kind of the last project, you'll get it in just a second, that happened in the first rendition of Dad's business. Well, second rendition, whatever you want to call it. Yeah?
Yeah, so I started as a body shop, but I ended up quickly, like within the first couple years of being a body shop, I don't want to do that. That sucks, that's
Right.
boring. So we started building fiberglass bodies and street rods.
And we'll get into the whole fiberglass deal in a minute, but first a little more about the car. So this is a 41 Willys, all fiberglass, built as a gasser.
Entirely in this, basically this back shop.
Like the whole thing, all of it. This is actually the last car that they built in their fiberglass business out of their molds before they sold them. But this car was kind of special because it's actually a tribute to a very famous car called Stonewoods and Cook.
Some of you might know that name. It was voted multiple times in the NHRA poll as the most famous race car ever. So to me, growing up, that was just the iconic car. One, the color, blue, come on.
Pretty blue.
That's candy apple blue. How can it get any better? Gold leaf lettering, but a gasser Willys with a blown Hemi.
Yeah.
Ah, that's it.
So the play on Stonewoods and Cook, Pebble Pulp and Chef, actually got permission to use that name.
Yeah, Mike Cook. I had to call Mike. We had to find Mike. This is a little bit before the internet was so popular. And we got a hold of Mike and he said, I can't let you use Stonewoods and Cook. It's a legal thing.
Yeah.
Which I actually wanted to do, to kind of recreate the car. I said, what about what Junior Thompson called it back in the Camor days? Because it was a lot of, like it is now, a lot of fighting and arguing and stuff. So I think it was Junior Thompson that said, if Pebble Pulp and Chef would shut up and start racing, we could get somewhere.
So that's where the name came to be. It sounds like just a play on the word Stonewoods and Cook, but I mean it is. However, it has a lot of history behind it. So you built this in what, like 08?
07, I think, yeah.
07. So built in 07, raced it for a couple years in some of the gasser classes, heard a couple motors along the way.
Learned a lot.
Parked it in the corner, and it's honestly been in this corner for a considerable amount of time.
I think I walked by a couple days ago and looked at the sticker that's in the window, and I believe that sticker says 2013.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part of that is I hurt the motor at the last race. I leaned it out. I'm pretty sure we're going to find out.
You're going to find that out. You're going to
And
see.
I put it right here, and guess what?
It stayed there.
Today is 2024.
Yeah.
So it's been 10 or 11 years.
It's been a while. So that's part of the whole goal, is to get these where they can start, run, cruise them to a race if we want, move them to the parking lot if they're in the way, whatever. Before we get into this, we're going to, just so you guys know, we're going to pull the motor apart, do a little investigation as to what happened, check it all out, start polishing it. You're going to see there's a lot to be cleaned up on this. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about fiberglass and the business and what that was before race cars were the whole world around here.
That's the truth.
Facts. Let's chat. Let's have a chat. All right, so a little backstory and a little history on the fiberglass business. Some of you probably have heard a brief bit of this story, but fiberglass is where it all started. Well, kind of where it all started. As you mentioned, bodywork before, but then fiberglass is where it all started for the business.
Yeah, the fiberglass was the big part of our business for many years. So, you know, there's a lot of history here of fiberglass.
Lots of itchiness. So real quick, how many cars you did?
So we started with different body styles. So we had 37 Ford sedans, we had 33 Ford coupes, we had 41 Willys, 40 Willys, 33 Willys, and variations of those. But you know, total, there was hundreds of cars built.
Lots and lots of cars. So everything was done in-house, in the shop, between Dad and Mom, and they had employees throughout the years. But give a background. When they say they built fiberglass Willys, it wasn't just building the bodies. They had the turnkey option. They had just a roller option. Had all kinds of different stuff going on there.
I mean, so when that front shop was built, 4,000 square feet, I thought I'd never outgrow that. That was a big shop for me. Never had anything like that. We quickly outgrew that. So when you start putting molds, which is basically every part of a car body on wheels upside down, that doesn't take very long to outgrow that. So then we built this back shop, which we're in is 4,000 square feet, quickly outgrew that, and we built 5,000 feet next door.
It's a
So
lot.
it was a lot of square footage and a lot of equipment. There was big press brakes and shears. So we made everything. I made rear end housings. I made control arms. I made frames. You know, it was all done right here.
Yeah, so there, the 5,000 square feet that was actually downstairs, like I'd say at least 50% of that was just mold storage.
That was mold storage.
So
yeah.
then that's how much room that those molds took up. And at that time, you only had like what, 2 body styles for that? Because
I think when we took it down there, it was probably 2 or 3.
2 or
It ended
3.
up being 5 or 6.
Yeah, so like they just take up a lot of space. And so anyways, that's where kind of where it started. But going back, you started in 92, 3.
Building fiberglass?
Yeah.
Yeah, about probably 93, I think.
So backstory on that, you built your first fiberglass one.
So a friend of mine over at Clarksville, Joe Black, had a 37 Ford sedan, super nice car. He drove it over here from Clarksville. Well, we decided, let's make a Carson top, which for the older guys don't know what a Carson top is. The younger guys, that's a top that lifts off. It looks like a convertible, but it's a hard top that lifts off, but it's covered with cloth. So then I'm like, I really hate cutting up this super nice car. I know where there's a 37 Ford that's junk. So long story short, we got that junk 37 Ford and I cut it up. Spent way more time than I should making it perfect to build molds off of, and that started the fiberglass business.
So that's the suntan sedan back there?
And that goes way back. So we built the first car, the very first body. We didn't even know how to lay up fiberglass. This is before internet days. I couldn't Google like you can now. I mean, everything's so easy to find now.
Right.
We went to a boat place over in Clarksville that makes boats, and we got a little rundown from them. We came back, I still didn't understand. We made our first car with paintbrushes and 5 layers of 2-ounce mat. That car was close to a 1/4 inch thick, and you know what? It still exists.
Just so you know, that means that it's really heavy, and you usually do it with rollers,
Yeah.
not with, well, for what they were doing was with rollers. Paintbrushes, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of
And I'll bet you
processing.
that first car had less air in it, less air bubbles in it, the way we did it and the time we took. But all that boils down to we were very, very
Meticulous?
about how we were doing our work. And when we took it to the first show, a sign painter here painted that sign. My dad made a stand, and we sold at the very first show, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Shades of the Past. I think we sold 7 or 8 cars. I don't remember.
So they went from just one car that they didn't have a clue what they were doing to like now having an order of like 7 or 8
Yeah,
cars.
still not knowing what we're doing.
And so they had all that. And so mom was doing the office work, and she was also helping lay fiberglass.
She was me and her laid a lot of
She
fiberglass.
can lay some fiberglass. And then like over the years, that wait list didn't really decrease at all.
No, it didn't decrease until we quit.
It
And
was-
we were behind whatever, 10, 12, 15 cars when we
When they
quit.
sold the business in 2007, you had like, it was 2 years to shut down, I
Right.
think. Yeah. So it was like a multi-year shutdown and people knew, like they'd call, talk to mom, ask how long like the wait is, and she'd tell them 2 or 3 years, whatever it was.
And
they'd
they'd
be
wait.
like, okay, cool. Can't wait to get the car.
I mean, it was a different time because 41 Willys were the hottest thing
Mm-hmm.
ever. I mean, Fox body Mustangs, yeah, they paled compared to 41 Willys at the time.
Right.
We're talking 90s and early 2000s. They were hot.
And so they were selling like crazy. And then they were still selling when the business sold. It was actually still popular. They were just ready to do something different, get into more one-off style custom cars, not so much production, and still selling. But then everything crashed in 2008. You guys sold right at the right time, got out while the business was still going.
Man, it was like a beam of light from heaven came down. It's like, we're so tired of it by now. Employees, as you all probably know, were just a pain. There was so much to it, the backlog, and people were starting to get a little more antsy because we were getting away from the old school Willys guys, the gassers and the traditional Willys. We were getting
People
into
were aging,
22-inch
yeah.
wheels and LS motors and stuff, and it literally brought a different crowd but
Yeah.
it was an evolution of the car, and they weren't quite as understanding as the old guys.
So like stuff was changing, the car world was changing. Megan and I don't know, I was 10, I guess, when you guys sold it. Yeah, 10. So like I remember a lot of it, like helped lay it up, fiberglass, whatever. But then they sold it right at the right time as stuff was like changing over, and the molds went to another company. They came in and trained. Unfortunately, they went out of business shortly after, just the wrong time. Cars were different.
The economy took a dump, and
Yeah.
it literally shut down a lot of fiberglass companies.
Yeah, so don't actually know where those molds are. Some people will ask still, but I mean, you don't know where those molds are now.
The last time I saw them, somebody sent pictures. They were behind a shop out in the weather, just rusting and deteriorating.
Yeah. So molds are a really big deal, like selling those off. One, it's a lot of time and effort to get them, but two, like there used to be, and there still is a lot of fiberglass stuff, but quality of fiberglass, that was something that you guys were always commended on, was the quality of the seams and the woodwork in the body, stuff like that.
We went the extra mile. When you got a body from us, typically 99% of them were rollers, we called it. So we built a chassis here. We'd put junkyard wheels on them and roll them into their trailer. But the seams, the gaps, the door gaps were so perfect, and the edges of the doors were made thin so they didn't look like a kit car with a 1/4-inch thick door.
Yeah.
So when you got one, you could have it ready to paint, and I did a lot of them in a week. You know, it was a matter of block sanding the gel coat and putting primer on it and getting ready to paint.
So they were really nice. It was the show car area where there was lots of chrome, lots of bright, shiny paint. It was just a different.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. It was a different time. But then, coming up in like 2007, you kind of started to get back into racing when you guys built PPC, Pebble Pulp and Chef over there, which was actually the last body that Mom laid up out of the molds.
By herself.
By herself. She built the last one, and they kept the last one, and that's what the blue car that you guys just saw actually is.
Yeah, it was, we decided that, I mean, I can't even remember the exact chain of events, but we were ready to quit. We had the orders backlogged, but the molds were still being used, and your mom laid up that last one. I was back here building a one-off chassis. I wanted a drag race chassis. I wanted Stonewoods and Cook, but you can't use Stonewoods and Cook on the drag strip anymore. So I tried to do things, hide roll cages, stuff like that, and that's the car we ended up with, and it didn't take me long to kind of get burned out on the gasser scene.
But that's where you started to get back into racing. You hadn't been
Yeah.
racing in a while. I mean, I didn't remember you racing prior to that, for people that ask. I hadn't seen you drag race prior
Was
to
the Camaro before or
After the Willys.
Okay,
Yeah.
so because we were wrapped up in 15 car backlog
Yeah.
of Willys street rods. It was mostly street rods. It wasn't so much show car. They were all street rods that also doubled as show car. I mean, they were as nice under the hood, the bottom side of the fiberglass, as they were on the outside.
Yes.
The ones that I built.
Right, right. So with that, as that transition happened, you started transitioning into more like one-off custom steel body cars. After that, there was a little bit of show car, nice car that came, but then all around that same time, racing starts picking up. I was not racing at that time. I mean, I was 10, but like the PPC is what got the racing started back up. We started going to gasser races. You raced it for a little while. Then there's another 55 Chevy that came to be. We'll get into all of that. But that's kind of where it went from the transition of really nice street rods, show car, chrome, function over, function over
Form over function.
Form over function, yeah. So,
But they function too. That's the thing about it. They were nice cars.
Aesthetic.
Yeah.
And that was where it kind of started to switch. And then you went through that little bitty detour of custom one-off, just show car type stuff. And then race cars took over. And that kind of became the business.
Well, let's see. They took over, and here we are today. I mean, it seems like overnight, like I said, 10 years that car's been sitting in the corner. So race cars kind of dominate our life.
With that said, it is time to pull a race car out of the corner, get it cleaned up, and get it back where it could function as a race car. Funny how that full circle works, right?
And it's purely race car.
It is. It's
Blown
not got
alcohol.
any street to it. So let's dig it out, clean it up, and you guys can actually see what's going on over there because it's pretty cool. Okay, so if you guys remember Tom's car,
Tom who?
Tom Bailey. This is, you guys keep asking if what's happening with it. This is where we say it's you, not us.
No, it's where we say it's Tom, not us.
Well, yeah, it's not you guys. The wagon, or the Nomad,
Don't call it a wagon.
I feel like he has called it that. The Nomad is still on whenever Tom sends parts.
Yeah. This thing got in his way called Sick Week.
Yeah, sick week.
It all happened
Got in
about
the
the
way.
same time, so this kind of took a back seat.
Okay,
All right, I might ought to air those front tires up.
that's probably good. This hasn't moved in a while. It actually, I take that back. It was pointing that way, and then it moved this way.
Look at this, valve stem caps.
So this is actually a whole ordeal. When I went to race at Bowling Green the last time for Hot Rod Reunion, had rubber valve stems, and NHRA said, nay, 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 you can't run. So Dad parked the car for the weekend and put a sign in it that said, NHRA said I can't run.
And it had ran a lot. I don't like metal valve stems that much because they really leak. And, you know, and what really hurts my feelings is it was perfect until it sat here and I scratched it carrying stuff upstairs. And just the other day I was carrying one of those pieces
Yeah, what'd you do?
and I came by and whacked it. And it's not easy to fix because it's a
That
tricolor.
wasn't me. And then he ran it into, what did you run, a forklift into it?
No, I carried something upstairs. I don't remember what it was, sitting, you know, going upstairs with something, and I swung around and the back of it caught it. Okay, good. Let's stop. Wait. If we're gonna clean the inside out, let's go right here.
Oh, it's a dirty one. Wow. There's a lot of overspray on this, I feel like.
Oh man, it's covered.
Wow.
It
Yep.
needs buffing. Look how the headlights have,
Yeah.
the chrome is worn off of them.
From sitting.
So it's pot metal, but it's like the wheels. Those are highly polished. Feel that, I bet you'd be grossed.
Ooh,
It's rough, isn't it?
that's nasty.
So, you know, look at the lug studs are rusty, so the humidity's rusted all this. All the axle, everything under there's chrome.
Wait till you guys see under here. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty dirty and rusty.
It is dirty. But, all right, we shall start cleaning it up, and then we can go over what's going on here. Where do you want to start for cleaning it up?
I think we ought to start on the inside.
Just
There's
pulling-
so many blankets and stuff. Why are those even in there?
Well, because we got rid of them at the house and said, do you want these duffel cover things, whatever
I
they're
don't.
called? Well, you did at the time.
Well, they've not done anything, so let's take them out and throw that bar out.
This is kind of gross.
Look at, I don't know where the pin
Check that out.
is.
Bam, bam, bam. Oh, I have a pin over
I
here.
don't have a pin. Mine must be buried in the seat. Okay, anybody wants to buy a purple bedspread? Or what is this thing called? Comforter?
Comforter.
It's for sale.
I was like,
Dust is included, free.
Yeah. So this is your 6-year-old bedspread? So I guess it got put in there thinking that maybe I'd use it like at the racetrack to lay on
No,
something.
like a moving blanket here, you know?
It's what?
Kind of like a moving blanket.
This is kind of sad. What is this?
That's an Arkansas flag.
Oh, well, it's still kind of sad. We're going to have to put that up somewhere.
Gross in here. Put my hair up for this. So you know what? If you think about this race car stuff versus our race car stuff today, big difference.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to go backwards, actually.
I agree with that.
I'm not looking forward to it.
Dirt daubers. That's
I'm really not into the
tasty.
gasser thing at all anymore.
Yeah, but this one will be fun.
It's going to be fun to get going, but this back, look at you want to see something really, really, really gross?
Yeah.
Blue seat belts.
Oh yeah, I thought that.
Isn't that amazing that I ever had that bad a taste? That's really, really ugly. That away.
Oh, this is from when we went to Bowling Green and we had a luau for one of the parties there. That's gross. Throw that away.
That's definitely going in the trash pile.
Poor car has been robbed and stolen.
Honestly,
trash.
I don't have many fond memories of Bowling Green. That's going in the trash.
Here, pull all this junk
That's
out.
more
Oh,
car covers.
no, that's
Not.
that's
Like,
my bedspread.
that's really dated.
That's how long it's been parked. This is Mom and Dad's bedspread. That's your guys' bedspread.
Okay, so that's a pretty good pile for the dumpster. And
Okay.
another car cover that's probably ready for the junk.
Looks like mini steps for a mouse.
You know what that is? It's covering up a digital 7 or something.
I don't like it.
I forgot, why do you do that? We put electronics in
I
there.
don't know.
I took the mag out and converted it to a 7. We may put the 7 back in. And that
Okay.
covers it up so it doesn't look new.
You guys want to see in here?
Wonder where my gas, oh, the gas pedal's there. See the brake and the gas pedal? That's from my Cross and Skull days.
Your street rod days. You can get a shirt. That's
That's not really street rod. That's a cool brake pedal.
like the Jesse James era.
Look at the, don't compare me to
I'm not
Jesse
comparing
James.
you. I'm saying like year wise. You know, like when it was popular.
Look at the cool gas pedal.
That is a cool gas pedal.
That, I mean, I would be impressed with that today.
Did you make that?
Of course.
Well, it's chromed.
No, it's not. It's polished aluminum.
Well, it sure
The brake
stayed
pedal's
polished.
chrome, but I had, back in these days, I had Mark Campbell at Street and Performance chrome everything. So Mark is no longer, and neither is Street and Performance, unfortunately. So these are, I guess, what did I do? Oh, you know what I did with these? Exhaust plugs. In case it rained or whatever. Kept whatever. And they're not going back in there. You know what I did? Back in those days, I still thought the NHRA was important and we didn't do gasser stuff. You know, I thought my gasser kind of had to fit. If you notice a 4135 on the window,
Yeah.
that's NHRA.
Yeah.
And I built those pipes per NHRA specs. And then gassers got popular again. This was one of the early, you know, they weren't like belly buttons at this time. And now people do whatever they want. But I tried to make mine NHRA legal. It had to aim up and back, and I made it by the NHRA rule book.
Yeah.
So it's like I was ever going to race in an NHRA event other than Bowling Green, which I didn't race because they didn't like my valve stems.
Well, you did all that for your headers and you didn't get the valves.
I don't even like the headers. I'd rather them be cut off and point down and blow dirt like the real car did.
Well, we can look at that. Okay, so there is probably 10 years of dust collected in here. Maybe not 10. You probably cleaned it one time in there, so 8.
What are we going to do with it?
Well, there's a couple things. So we could always raise it up the hood. I think we should do that, and we'll go over and show you guys what's actually in this thing. And then we got some cleaning ahead of us.
So look at this though. Check this out. This is cool. See, that's the removable floorboard, but I actually made it fit. And like I said, I haven't done it in a long time, so I'm not sure how. But it snaps underneath that seal there, and then Zeus fastens in. I can push that down there. Push that down just a little bit. Okay. Now, as Zeus is in, look how good that seals.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool. So that works really good.
Okay, so it's really dusty. There's been a lot of parts robbed on this over the years. The transmission was a power glide in it.
Yeah.
It got robbed for, was that a customer car?
Yep.
Got robbed for a customer car, and then, look, hang on, look at that real quick. The door doesn't, see, like that's nice. That way it doesn't blow open, blow closed. It's nice in place. Anyways, and then the rear end got robbed for my Camaro.
Some dumb Camaro.
Yeah, it's downstairs though. You can have it back.
No.
Yeah, it is.
No, it got used for something else.
Well, after that, my hands are clean.
No.
It's downstairs.
No, I don't think so.
I think it is.
We used that rear end in something
And
else.
then I took it out, got a Curry rear end, and that one's downstairs.
I think it still got used for something else.
Oh, maybe
Like
the
a
Challenger
Dodge.
has it. It's in the Challenger. All right, we'll deal with that. So, do you guys want to see what's under the hood?
So here's the funny thing about this. It's only 10 years, But I honestly have very little memory of what this motor actually is.
Okay, well then we'll all be surprised.
Well-
Under the hood, do you want to tell them what it is?
You wanted something cool? You can have a prop rod or you can do this.
Whoa, dude. That would be
As
bad.
long as the wind doesn't blow.
Kind of like a Jeepalator. All right, for those that know, they'll know. For those that don't, this is a 392 Hemi in here. Cool Hemi. You can tell about it.
It's a 58 vintage Hemi. So it's the same, basically the same motor as Stonewoods and Cook. A lot of people might not know this, but I was told by the Cook family themselves that Doug actually preferred the 331, 354 Hemi. So same thing, just a taller deck, a little bit more cubic inches, but Doug was a pretty knowledgeable dude and he stayed with the smaller cubic inch Hemi. Made same power.
Come check it out. Come look at this. So smaller cubic inch Hemi, 392, but this was, Hemis are expensive.
Yep, very.
A lot of expensiveness. I wasn't buying parts at that time, but I remember that's all I remember hearing is like, well, that's expensive, and hard to find.
At this time, literally when I was doing this thing in 07, I think.
7.
So in 07, eBay was just really becoming a thing. It was really getting populated, and if you typed gasser in, you could get some good deals on there. I don't remember just what all I bought off eBay, but you could get them. And then by, I don't know, 12 or 13, gasser stuff and Hemi stuff on eBay was like gold. Everybody figured out you could sell it on there. So one thing I couldn't get, it was like gold, and it was also like hen's teeth. They were really hard to find, was a timing cover.
Check it out.
So I just tooled up and cast my own timing covers. I made the wood patterns, and you know, it functioned. It may not be as cool looking as some of them, but it worked, and it's got my name on it.
And you also did your own rockers?
Those are, I did them 2 or 3 times out of billet aluminum. So the last set, which are upstairs, they're off of this head, were actually chrome moly.
You should go get those.
I should get those.
Okay. Go grab them.
Let me go get those.
He's gonna grab them. So obviously there's a lot to clean up here, a whole lot. One of the biggest things that we have to do to start, because we don't actually know what's wrong inside the motor. Like he said, he heard it last time, parked it, and it's sat since. So when we open it up, it's honestly going to be a mystery of what the issue is. He thinks it needs out. He thinks it may have a burnt piston. So we need to get the motor out, get it taken apart. That way we can get parts ordered. That way we actually know what we need. So we'll get it out, get it taken apart, get parts ordered. We got to order a transmission. We got to do a rear end. We'll have to make a parts list. But in the meantime, we have plenty of cleaning, like everywhere, everything. Lots to polish, lots to clean. But anyways, rockers.
So one of the things for 392s, you can get all kinds of stuff for 426s and now for the Gen 3s and what have you. But rocker arms for a first gen Hemi were hard to get, very expensive. So I set up with my old CNC mill and made the stands and this is just an exhaust rocker, or exhaust, I believe.
Keep in mind, these weren't programmed. Like, it's not drawn on CAD and then cut with computer program. It's like old mill where he's having to program it all. So. No.
And really what happened with the aluminum version was I kept increasing the valve spring size, and this notch kept getting bigger. And when it got bigger, it got very thin because of the shaft I was using, and they cracked. So they actually worked. That's, you know, I put my name in there by hand, basically. But I made those, and then after fighting that a couple times, I remade them and made them out of chrome moly. So these are bushed instead of having the roller bearings in there, and these worked very well. So that's actually, I did a lot of stuff like that roller right there. I didn't have a connection with Isky back in the day. Nowadays I could have a little bit of an advantage, but these pins and that roller are actually clutch parts. That's on the pressure plate of a clutch. So I was able to buy boxes of these things and put the pins in, and they worked. And then I bought the adjusters from somebody, I don't even remember who. So that set of rockers is off of this side of the engine.
And it's 100% made here.
Yep.
So pretty cool.
So this is, I got as far when we heard the motor is taking this side apart for whatever reason, I don't remember, but I stopped there. and I haven't looked in here in 10 years. So you can see I made spacers. I don't even remember why, but I felt like I needed to, and I did, to make everything. Look at the size of that push
It's a
rod.
long push rod.
It's like 12 inches.
But it's really skinny. Skinny,
Yeah,
long.
very skinny. But we're not using the kind of spring pressures that we are used to now. So the head studs actually hold the rockers on, the rocker stands. That's a Hemi thing. So what we've got to do, and there's a lot of work in these heads, and I'll show that as we get further in, but like exhaust ports, I had to melt aluminum and pour in the exhaust crossovers and fill the exhaust ports on these heads, and then all the valve work and everything else that's in there, increasing the spring pockets. So to build an old Hemi is not like what people do now. You don't just buy parts and bolt them together.
And keep in mind that the 55 had a tight deadline, but so did this. I think from the time he decided to actually build it and have it at March Meet. I think March Meet was its first race, March Meet in California. You had like 3 or 4 months.
I think it was 3 months.
3 months, it was stupid. Like, and this is like with paint, which this is not a simple paint, with paint, gold leaf lettering, like all
Build
of
the
that.
chassis, I mean, build the motor.
Yeah,
There was a lot to it.
there's-
So the motor, there's a lot more than even we've talked about, like the block, it's 4-bolt main. So this has got Program was the name of the company that made the billet steel main caps, and I put 4-bolt mains on there. Should be good enough, right? Dragsters back in the day didn't have that with nitro. Well, that wasn't good enough. I made the same girdle like we have on the 55 Chevy. So the main caps actually cross bolt as well. So there's 6-bolt main caps. It's got a billet Moldex crank in it. It's got billet MGP rods. This thing's got the same parts that the 55 Chevy has, makes a third the horsepower.
I was thinking, man, this thing's complicated. It's as complicated as the 55. So we'll dive into all that. That'll be in the very next episode where like we'll go ahead and get the motor out in the next one, get it pulled apart and all of that. We're just giving you guys an overview and kind of de-junking it right now with all the sheets. That'll be coming out very shortly. So that's gonna come apart. It's gonna be interesting opening it up and seeing. But before we cap this video off, let's go through. So we've got the Hemi. We're gonna go back with a power glide in it, as far as last I heard, yes. So go back with a power glide, get a nice third member in it. Let's go do a walk around of the car real quick, and then we actually have to get to work and get ready to take the motor out so we can show you guys that.
Okay, let's walk right here.
Walk right here. Okay, come on, this.
Come here, I want to show.
walk.
This is back, you know, I don't do stuff like this so much anymore. But you saw the cool gas pedal in there, and it's not hooked up because I've had the blower off of it, or the injector. I actually had the injector off of it. But one of the problems with the 4-port Hillborn is that little bitty 5/16 shaft in there will twist. Typically you accelerate from one end or the other, and the shaft will twist, and then they idle funky. You're idling good, and then when it warms up, it's idling, you know, 1500 RPM more than what it was. So I did this. I carved these bitchin' wishbones full of holes and put this bar across here. So not only do you have the shaft in there, but you got the shaft out here that keeps it from twisting. That was a trick that I figured out, and it worked really well. But the throttle also, the bell crank is all carved, and I don't mean just a flat plate. That's got shape on both sides of that. It's got bearings in there. That's really cool stuff.
Street rod mixed with race car.
Function and form together. You can see more of that if you look inside the front fenders. Check out come over here and look inside how the pivot on this front end will also
I was going to
pivot
say, we'll
forward.
have to show that, because that's like the 55.
Yeah, so it's
So the 55 has a tilt front end. You guys have seen it. That's actually pretty old school of way to do stuff. Now everybody lifts the front end off, and you have to have 2 people to lift it and carry it and everything. Tilt front ends was like gasser type stuff.
I mean, it's so old, and yet it works so good. It's
does.
just something that the young people want to be different, so they don't do what old people did. When
Well-
in fact, you can pick that front end off and set it off just like you can
Yeah.
a new one.
So let's tilt. Can you tilt it forward? Does it have
I've got to
be
take bolts out.
Okay, we'll leave it. This is bolted. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
because I didn't tilt it that often, but the idea
But
is
see, it's got the cables right here to catch it, so it'll tilt forward like the 55. Yeah, go ahead. And what else do we got here? Details that we want to share and talk about.
There's multiple. You can see the two-piece pan and the girdle thing
Well, we'll
down
get into
there.
the motor later, but an overall of the car. So
There's not a lot in here. I mean, that's just basic stuff. Just
okay. Let's look at the inside then. What we haven't already. For the most part, I mean, so this is all gold leaf lettering, hand lettering. You guys did that. For some reason, I very much remember you guys doing that late at night, one night when we were getting ready to go.
Yeah, and if you notice when I cared,
I know.
like
That's the thing
nowadays,
you used to.
I don't care. Like, look at the Savoy up there. I mean, you could trip if you were walking across that thing. There is no line. That is smooth. But that's literally gold leaf applied on top of candy blue with black hand letter. I sit there and brush that with a paintbrush. So, you know, when you brush paint, it's fairly thick.
And then it's
but there's
cleared.
zero
Yeah.
step. So, you know, I sanded, cleared, what have you.
You used
so.
to be very attention to detail.
Well, that's the way I built cars, and that's what I did forever. But you know what? You get really tired of doing that kind of detail.
And now, with what we do, like, if the 55 was this nice, it'd be so hard to actually use it for what it's supposed to be. Like,
It would break your heart when
yeah.
you scratch it, so that's kind of
granted,
what
the
we
55 is an extra case of rough, but anyways, okay, so inside, nothing too crazy. This is honestly a pretty simple race car.
And it was fun. I mean, it really was fun. A 9-second pass in this thing, a low 9, was as fun as a 7-second pass in the Nova.
Fair.
So this is, you know, the pins are,
Okay.
I haven't even looked in here in 10 years.
I was like, I don't even remember what's in here. So obviously it'll have a parachute back on the back. It's been robbed for who knows what. You want to put this prop rod up?
Let's do it. I don't even remember. So it goes in that hole right there.
It's like a surprise, guys. This is a barn find, except it's a shop find that we knew exactly where it was. It's just hadn't done anything.
So for whatever reason, I had dual batteries. Like I need dual
That
batteries.
was really extra. Was it weight? Maybe
Well,
it was weight.
so these are also, or they were, those black boxes that are behind the mill over there. Those are actually ballast boxes that sat here. So those lids would cover the top of the ballast box up. I could throw 100 pounds of weight inside those things.
I remember that now. I forgot that.
But the very, very first time I let the button out at the drag strip, it went straight up and bent the wheelie bars and kicked the back tires off the ground. So I didn't need ballast.
So, and then one more thing, this is a ladder bar car. So you can explain that.
Old school.
Old school style. You can come look under here if you want
And
to
they're
check
very
this
long.
out. Very long ladder bars. You can explain while she's looking at that, the import, like what, I mean, it's simple, but some might not understand.
Well, with the 4-link, you can make, effectively, you can make a 4-link react the same as any ladder bar. So depending on how you put your link bars, you can make the ladder bar effectively a mile out in front of the car. So, which is an exaggeration, but you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, you got a fixed pickup point. And back in the day, some of the guys would make them really long. I mean, they go up, you know, to the front of the back of the engine or front of the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is, back when they had no tires and no drag strip prep like they do now radial prep everywhere, you don't need that much. This will literally, the further forward you push it is where you're lifting the car.
So it's your pickup point where you're saying with a 4-link, you have the ability to change that. This is what it is.
It is what it
forward.
is, but back in the day, that's the way it was. And then we started getting better tires. So this one's got a long ladder bar, which picks the front of the car up further out. If you had a really short ladder bar, it'd hike the back of the car up. You know, so it's you got to, as a chassis builder, you kind of have to know. Well, I built this one kind of traditional, and we were running on very limited prep tracks when even 10 years, whatever.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
07, no, more than that.
Oh, yeah.
07, whatever.
That's almost
it is.
20. That's 17 years ago.
So 17 years ago, a gasser prep track was basically no prep. I mean, they spray a little at the starting.
What was the fastest you ran in this?
9 teens, I don't remember.
That's
but
fast.
it never ever had a tune.
So, and another thing with gassers, or like with the 41 Willys, if you come look, I mean, the whole thing is a bubble. The car is a bubble. And something that happens with them is, if you imagine, this is a big old balloon under here. So air gets under there.
So according to the old dudes, and this has always been my fear of Willys, and they said The old guys put these in wind tunnels and they said 150 miles an hour is the danger zone. You can go 150, you go 140, 160, you're playing with fire, and anything faster than that, you're really getting dangerous. So I was always nervous. But of course, 150 back then, and this thing was, thought that was fast. Now 150 is like snore.
Except in this, it's a lot
It
more.
would be
It'd be a
different.
lot more of a handful. So
I have had some wild rides.
yeah, there's
in it.
been some wild rides in this one, and that's one of the things. Like, it is a handful of a car, not because it's designed poorly, but just the car itself being what it is a little bit of a handful.
So it's a 100-inch wheelbase.
I was gonna say the wheelbase is.
You know, it looks like a big car. You know, standing here, it looks like a big car. It's a 100-inch wheelbase, so it's very short and very tricky.
Where say like a 55, that's 115-ish.
Yeah, something like that.
15.
I don't
So
even remember.
It is relatively short compared to a stock wheelbase car that, like, you know, we're used to running. So
112, 115 on these
that
things.
with sitting high up, with the bubbleness of it, it's just a lot going on.
The aerodynamics.
Or
so,
lack of.
Yeah. what is it? The Willys is an acronym: wild, ill handling, loud. You know, it's WILLYS. But that is the I in Willys is for ill handling, and they were. But what happens, according to the old dudes in the wind tunnel, when you put that hood down and it's pointed like this, the air coming at it's splitting. And it's going away from the back of the car. There's a major vacuum back there because of that dead spot of air. So they get very ill handling. You just really shouldn't be driving them that fast. People do now. People do a lot of crazy things now.
Yeah.
But
So
we've also seen a guy, a friend of ours at Bakersfield, almost
it was
died. but-
gnarly.
yeah.
We walked up as he was wrecking. Like, he was getting ready to start his pack. We ran up to the fence. And we watched, I think he flipped 9 times, or barrel rolled like 9 times. He had to cut his helmet off.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. It's
Very
just
scary.
yeah.
So I've always had my respect for the things you gotta respect them or they'll kill you.
True. So, with that said, obviously there's a lot more in here. Just so you guys know, as we go forward, this will be a couple different sections of chunks of video. So, like, for the next, there'll be like 3 videos coming out with this where we get the engine out and actually take it apart, and then 1 cleaning it up, and then it'll be in some downtime with this project. We'll get another project out. This project will be in some downtime as we wait on parts to get here, and we'll pick that back up later. So just so you guys know, that's what it's gonna look like. But with that said, I think we've bored you guys long enough and given you just a taste of what's to come with this. So
Let's get that chunk of iron, heavy chunk of iron.
Yeah.
Wait till you pick that cylinder head up.
I don't even know if I can.
For 1,000 horsepower, that's really what they made, 1,000 horsepower.
It's a lot.
Like there's a lot of there's a lot of metal there.
Yeah.
You can take a small LS motor and make 1,000 horsepower.
Perspective, guys. So with that said, that is it for this episode. Tune back in very shortly for engine. I'd tell you a date, but I don't know what that is yet. So tune back in shortly. We'll have that ready to go. And as always, be happy, go fast, and stay pretty. We'll see you guys next time.